Verses 13 to 16. Paul is hastening towards Jerusalem, but strives to do all the good he can by the way, os en parado, as it were by the by. He had called at Troas, and done good there, and now he makes a sort of coasting voyage, the merchants would call it a trading voyage, going from place to place, and no doubt endeavoring to make every place he came to the better for him, as every good man should do. He sent his companions by sea to Assos, but he himself was minded to go afoot, v. 13. He had decreed or determined within himself that whatever importunity should be used with him to the contrary, urging either his ease or his credit, or the conveniency of a ship that offered itself, or the company of his friends, he would foot it to Assos, and, if the land way which Paul took was the shorter way, yet it is taken notice of by the ancients as a rough way, Homer, Iliad 6, and Eustathius upon him, say, it was enough to kill one to go on foot to Assos Lauren in locum, yet that way Paul would take, 1. That he might call on his friends by the way, and do good among them, either converting sinners or edifying saints, and in both he was serving his great master, and carrying on his great work. Or, 2. That he might be alone, and might have the greater freedom of converse with God and his own heart in solitude. He loved his companions, and delighted in their company, yet he would show hereby that he did not need it, but could enjoy himself alone. Or, 3. That he might inure himself to hardship, and not seem to indulge his ease. Thus he would by voluntary instances of mortification and self-denial keep under the body, and bring it into subjection, that he might make his sufferings for Christ, when he was called out to them, the more easy. 2 Tim 2:3. We should use ourselves to deny ourselves. 2. At Assos he went on board with his friends. There they took him in, for by this time he had enough of his walk, and was willing to betake himself to the other way of travelling, or perhaps he could not go any further by land, but was obliged to go by water. When Christ sent his disciples away by ship, and tarried behind himself, yet he came to them, and they took him in, Mk 6:45, 51. 3. He made the best of his way to Jerusalem. His ship passed by Chios, v. 15, touched at Samos. These are places of note among the Greek writers, both poets and historians. They tarried a while at Trogyllium, the seaport next to Samos, and the next day they came to Miletus, the seaport that lay next to Ephesus. 4, v. 16. He had determined not to go to Ephesus at this time, because he could not go thither without being urged by his friends whose importunity he could not resist, to make some stay with them there, and, because he was resolved not to stay, he would not put himself into a temptation to stay, for he hasted, if it were possible for him, to be at Jerusalem on the day of Pentecost. He had been at Jerusalem about 4 or 5 years ago, ch 18:21-22, and now he was going thither again to pay his continued respects to that church, with which he was careful to keep a good correspondence, that he might not be thought alienated from it by his commission to preach among the Gentiles. He aimed to be there by the feast of Pentecost because it was a time of concourse, which would give him an opportunity of propagating the gospel among the Jews and proselytes, who came from all parts to worship at the feast, and the feast of Pentecost had been particularly made famous among the Christians by the pouring out of the Spirit. Note, men of business must fit themselves, and it will contribute to the expediting of it, to set time, with submission to providence, and strive to keep it, contriving to do that first which we judge to be most needful, and not suffering ourselves to be diverted from it. It is a pleasure to us to be with our friends, it diverts us, nothing more, but we must not by it be diverted from our work. When Paul has a call to Jerusalem, he will not loiter away the time in Asia, though he had more and kinder friends there. This is not the world we are to be together in, we hope to be so in the other world.
Church.